Trump's association with Epstein has been long known in public, and he has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing when it comes to the late sex trafficker. But the president and his aides have been waging an intense pressure campaign that ultimately backfired here on Capitol Hill tonight, where that petition to force a vote on the release of the Epstein files now has all of the votes that it needs. The 218th vote came courtesy of the newest member of the House, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, who was sworn in today, 50 days after winning her election. Speaker Mike Johnson said tonight that that bill will get its vote here on Capitol Hill next week.
It's a totally pointless exercise. It is completely moot now. We might as well just do it. I mean, they have 218 signatures, that's fine, we'll do it.
The two members of Congress who have been leading the charge on this bill are my sources on the Hill tonight, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna. And thank you both for being here, obviously on a huge day for the two of you. I'll ask you, since he's the Republican House Speaker, he's calling it totally pointless exercise and completely moot. What do you make of his comments? Do you agree with those?
Well, the White House spent a lot of effort in the midst of a shutdown to stop a totally pointless exercise that's completely mute. And by the way, I got to give credit to Lauren Boebert to walk into the White House, the center of power, the free world, really, and to sustain that and to come back out and to be solid, and also to Nancy Mace and Marjorie Taylor Greene. There was all the speculation that they might take their names off, and they never did. So it's not a hoax. It's not a moot point. It is a very serious thing. There are 1,000 victims, and there are survivors who have had a press conference with Ro Khanna and I, and that's what we're fighting for, justice for them.
Did y'all talk to them at any point during this, as the White House was making clear they were targeting these members?
I talked to them. I don't want to say which one I had this conversation with, but one of them was told, we can't let Massie have a win. How petty is that? I mean, this is more than about political wins. It's about getting transparency and justice, which, by the way, this administration promised. You have the Vice President, J.D. Vance, you have the AG, you have the FBI Director. They've all done a 180 on this.
So the White House said to one of these members that they didn't want you to have a win here.
That's correct.
I mean, what does that say to you, Congressman Ro Khanna, as to the White House's motivation here? I mean, I think so many people look at this and say, why is the White House fighting this as hard as they are, and you know, taking Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room, which is incredibly unusual based on my experience covering the White House?
They've really lost their way, because it was really Donald Trump, and more than Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, who in podcast after podcast said, release the Epstein files. And I give credit, of course, to the courage of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. They met with the survivors. It was personal. But I also give credit to Congressman Thomas Massie. I mean, he's got 3 billionaires literally pouring millions of dollars in his race against him to take him out simply because he wants these files released, which the president campaigned on. And you know what? The left and right are agreeing on one thing. It's time to get rid of the Epstein class, these rich and powerful people who rig the rules for themselves and ignore forgotten Americans.
So how many Republicans do you think are going to vote for this next week when Speaker Johnson brings it to a vote?
I think there's going to be a deluge of Republicans. The longer this goes on, the more support we gain. And I think the Speaker recognized that, and that's why after months of trying to stop us, he's decided to accelerate the vote, because he knows we're going to get votes, and that's going to carry momentum into the Senate. And that's why it's important to get a big vote in the House for Ro and I on this measure, is because that's where it goes next, is the Senate.
Yeah, so what happens here when it goes, if it passes and it does have that deluge of Republicans? I know you said today you thought 40 to 50 could potentially vote for it. Is that right?
Well, I think the Speaker's concluded if you can't stop the parade, you might as well lead it. And so now he's saying, I want to have the vote. I do think that you could get 30, 40, 50 Republicans voting for it, because what are we talking about? We're talking about rich and powerful men who abused young girls and told people in junior high to go recruit others to be raped or abused. That's what we're talking about. And we're saying that these victims want to expose the men who did this to them. Some of these men still have buildings named after them. Some of them still have scholarships named after them. Enough. And so I think when it's actually a vote on the House floor, do you want these files released? Republicans and Democrats are going to vote yes.
So what does it say if that happens and there are that many people who are in the House who vote for it and the Senate doesn't take it up?
Well, you know, we used a discharge petition. This is a parliamentary procedure that's only available in the House. It's only been successful maybe 20 times in the history of our country. Like, we had a 4% probability, if you look at statistics, of getting this to the floor, but we succeeded. In the Senate,
Wow.
they don't have a discharge petition, but they do have other ways. Each senator is almost like their own rules committee over there. And by being dilatory or accelerating the process for other senators, they can cajole them into getting votes. And I think we could see a vote on this in the Senate.
Why do you think the president keeps calling it a hoax, as he did again today? And he basically said no real Republicans, no good Republicans that aren't stupid or bad would fall for this trap.
It's sad to me because I actually didn't do this to score points against Donald Trump. I know Representative Massey didn't do it for that reason. We did it because we heard the stories of these survivors and we want justice for them. They're going to be out in front of the Capitol again on Tuesday. They were out about 2 months ago. And my guess is they're going to say the same thing. Mr. President, please meet with us. Listen to us. You can actually release these files. And I rather Donald Trump do the right thing, even if he gets a political win, than for us to go on ignoring women who have been abandoned before Trump's presidency. These women have not had justice for decades.
So you're saying it's bigger than Donald Trump?
It's much bigger than Donald Trump.
Because the White House is saying this is something Democrats didn't talk about when Joe Biden was in office, which we've asked you about before, and said that that's the whole motivating factor here. But you say that that's not the case for you either?
No, and I think Roe can go back and find examples where he talked about these files. I can go back in my social media and show you examples where I talked about these files needing to be released before President Trump was the president. And I don't think it's about Trump. I looked at
Also,
those.
so did President Trump, for the record.
Yes,
talked
he did,
about
for the
need
record.
files
And
to be
J.D.
released.
Vance.
Yeah, and members of the cabinet.
I looked at those emails there, and I don't think that implicates Trump any more than he's already been implicated. And I don't think he's trying to protect himself, per se. I think he's beyond embarrassment. Look, I was in an oversight committee when we were arguing, should he have paid the prostitute he had an affair with through campaign funds, or should he have used his personal funds? He's beyond embarrassment. That's what these files could present to him. I think there are people who are criminally implicated that aren't Donald Trump, but they may be his friends, and I think that's who he's trying to protect.
So you think he's just trying to cover up for other people?
For other people, and also probably for our own intelligence agencies.
But when you read that email from the 2011 email that Jeffrey Epstein wrote to Ghislaine Maxwell, who is obviously serving her sentence right now, and he says that Trump is the dog that hasn't barked, I wonder what you read into that.
I think he's probably saying that why haven't they asked Trump anything? Why hasn't Trump spoken? But, you know, the reason this cuts right at Trump's message is people knew he wasn't perfect when they elected him. People knew he had a lot of things in his past, but he promised, he said, look, I may not be perfect, but I'm going to take on the corrupt elite. I'm going to take on these people who just pay off politicians and have impunity and are shafting you. And now he's become part of Washington, and people are like, what happened to him? Why has he become part of the swamp that he said he would drain? And so, in my view, what would redeem him after months of dragging this out is to release the files. For the life of me, I don't understand why he just doesn't release the files, and let's have the left and the right come together to say enough with the Epstein class. They need to go.
Yeah, and
I could be wrong, but I look at that email and about dogs barking. It's cryptic. Maybe they suspected he was going to inform on them. I don't know.
Okay, so you're saying there could be other interpretations.
Yeah.
I do want to clarify something, which I'm not sure is I've clarified before, but Stormy Daniels isn't a prostitute. She's a porn star that alleged to have slept with the president at the center of that agreement. But on this front,
By the way, I say both should be legal.
when it comes to that's a conversation for another time. But when it comes to the motivation here and how MAGA voters feel about this. I mean, you speak to these people. You're someone who has been outspoken against the White House, but you don't generally disagree with some of the things that President Trump does or has run on policy-wise. How do you explain to voters why the president is fighting your discharge petition or fighting the release of this documents from the Justice Department?
Well, you know, I vote with my party 91% of the time, and which means I have agreed with the president 91% of the time. But when they're protecting pedophiles, when they are blowing our budget, when they are starting wars overseas, I'm sorry, I can't go along with that. And back home, people agree with me. They understand, even the most ardent Trump supporters understand sometimes he gets bad advice, sometimes he gives bad advice, and we wouldn't model our lives after him, his personal life. and they're okay with that. I mean, you can still like Donald Trump in Kentucky and like what I'm doing and what Ro Khanna is doing, which is trying to get transparency.
Well, and we were watching Adelita Grijalva be sworn in today, and as soon as she was sworn in, she walked over and signed this discharge petition. Seconds later, you went up and shook her hand, as you noted, before any other Democrats had actually even ever gotten over to her side.
You couldn't hear what I said, but I apologized to her for what my own party did, which was to keep her from being sworn in and depriving an entire congressional district of representation for 49, 50 days, which, I won a special election myself. I think I was sworn in within a week. And there was no reason to delay this other than the petty thing that now the speaker is accelerating. He tried to delay this vote. He deprived a congressional district of a congressperson. And now he says, well, okay, I guess I lost. We'll have the vote next week.